Why your living room might be the next startup hub. The coffee had gone cold again. She looked at it, sitting there on the counter, forgotten between the breakfast chaos and the argument over mismatched socks. Another morning swallowed whole before it even began. But underneath the noise, underneath the routine that felt both comforting and suffocating, there was a question she kept pushing away. Can I really build something of my own? She wasn't chasing millions or corner offices or the kind of success that requires sacrificing everything else. She wanted something quieter but just as powerful. Freedom. The kind that fits between nap times and school pickups. The kind that doesn't demand permission from anyone. For years, she'd been told that ambition and motherhood existed on opposite ends of some invisible scale, that wanting more meant loving less. That her season for dreams had passed the moment she became responsible for someone else's. But lately, something had shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was courage. Either way, she couldn't ignore it anymore. The idea didn't come from a business book or a motivational seminar. It came from the mess on her kitchen table. From the things she was already doing without calling them work. From the problems she'd solved 100 times without realizing they had value beyond her own four walls. She started noticing patterns. The way other moms asked her how she organized her kids' schedules. The compliments on the birthday invitations she designed in 20 minutes while dinner cooked. The fact that she could calm a tantrum, negotiate with a toddler, and troubleshoot a broken toy all before 9 in the morning. These weren't just survival skills. They were something else entirely. What would you have done in her place? Kept going through the motions, or paused long enough to see what was already there? She chose to pause, and in that pause, she discovered something that changes everything for women building businesses from home. The living room isn't just where life happens. For millions of women right now, it's becoming the unexpected birthplace of sustainable income, creative freedom, and a different kind of professional identity. Recent data shows that home-based businesses led by women are growing 40% faster than other entrepreneurial segments. Not because women suddenly learned some secret formula, but because they stopped waiting for perfect conditions. They started with what they had: a laptop, a skill, a few quiet hours, and the understanding that small beginnings don't mean small potential. She took a breath. Not the shallow kind she'd been surviving on, but a real one. The kind that reaches all the way down and reminds you that you're still here, still capable, still allowed to want things. But before anything could begin, she had to face the doubt. The kind that doesn't announce itself as fear. It disguises itself as practicality, as being realistic, as protecting yourself from disappointment. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe I'm not qualified enough. Maybe success is for people with different circumstances, different resources, different lives than mine. Part of her still felt guilty for wanting more, as if ambition had to disappear the moment motherhood began, as if dreaming about her own projects somehow diminished her love for her children. The guilt was quiet but persistent, whispering that good mothers don't think about themselves this much. She almost gave up before she started. But then came a shift she didn't expect. One message changed everything. Not from a mentor or a business coach, but from another mom in a similar position who'd taken the leap 6 months earlier. The message was simple: I'm not rich yet. I'm not even sure I'll ever be. But for the first time in years, I feel like myself again. And that's worth more than I can explain. That's when she realized something crucial. This wasn't about building an empire. It was about reclaiming a part of herself that had been set aside so long she'd almost forgotten it existed. The part that creates, that solves problems, that finds satisfaction in work that matters. So she started researching, but not in the way she expected. She didn't look for the fastest path to 6 figures or the trendiest online business model. She looked for what felt true, what aligned with her actual life, not some idealized version of it. The first thing she learned: virtual assistance isn't just scheduling appointments, it's become one of the most flexible entry points into remote work, with specializations ranging from social media management to email organization to customer service. Women are building entire businesses around helping other entrepreneurs manage the back end of their operations, often earning between $20 and $70 per hour, depending on their skills and niche. She smiled at the practicality of it. No massive startup costs, no inventory gathering dust in the garage. Just skills she could develop while her kids played nearby, with clients she could serve across time zones and continual boundaries. But virtual assistance wasn't the only path she discovered. As she dug deeper, she found a landscape of possibilities she'd never considered, each one built by someone who started exactly where she was. Uncertain, under-resourced, but willing to begin anyway. Freelance writing emerged as another viable option. Not the kind that requires a journalism degree or published credentials, but the content creation that businesses desperately need. Blog posts, website copy, email newsletters, social media captions. The demand is relentless, and the barrier to entry is remarkably low. All it requires is clear communication and the willingness to learn what different clients need. Then came the doubt again. The kind that whispers louder than failure. Who would pay me to write? I haven't written anything serious since college. I don't even know where to start, but she kept researching, and the more she learned, the more she realized something powerful. Most successful freelance writers didn't start as experts. They started as curious learners who got better with every project. They built portfolios one piece at a time. They learned SEO and client communication and how to price their work through trial and error, not through some mystical natural talent. Online tutoring caught her attention. Next, not the formal, credential-heavy kind, but the practical skill sharing that happens on platforms connecting people who know something with people who want to learn it. English conversation practice for international students, math help for struggling middle schoolers, test prep, music lessons. The subjects were as varied as human knowledge itself. She paused here, remembering how naturally teaching came to her when explaining concepts to her own kids, how patient she'd become, how creative she'd gotten at finding new ways to make ideas stick. These weren't marketable skills in the traditional sense, but in the online economy, they absolutely were. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress. It looks like staying curious when it would be easier to dismiss the idea entirely. Staying open when every practical voice says it's not realistic. Staying committed to the possibility that there might be another way to live. She discovered print-on-demand businesses next, and something clicked. The model was brilliantly simple. Design graphics, slogans, or artwork. Upload them to platforms like Redbubble, Teespring, or Printful. They handle production, shipping, and customer service. She'd earn a percentage of each sale without ever touching inventory or managing logistics. The creative part excited her more than she expected. She'd always had ideas, phrases that made her laugh, visual concepts that popped into her head at random moments. She'd just never considered that these fleeting thoughts could become something tangible, something someone else might want to wear or display or gift to a friend. But underneath the excitement, the fear crept back in. What if my designs aren't good enough? What if nobody buys anything? What if I invest time and energy into something that goes nowhere? These questions are universal. Every person who's ever created something and offered it to the world has felt them. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. Social media management presented another unexpected opportunity. Not the kind that requires a marketing degree, but the organic, authentic management that small businesses and personal brands desperately need. Scheduling posts, engaging with comments, creating content calendars, monitoring analytics, growing communities one genuine interaction at a time. She realized she'd been doing this informally for years, managing her family's small business social accounts, helping a friend promote her side hustle, building connection through consistent, thoughtful communication. These weren't hobbies. They were marketable skills. Studies show that over 60% of small businesses struggle with consistent social media presence. Not because they don't understand its value, but because they don't have the time or energy to maintain it. This gap represents opportunity for women who understand platform dynamics, visual storytelling, and the patience required to build authentic audiences. She took another breath. This one felt different, lighter, like possibility had finally found a way in. Handmade products sold through Etsy or personal websites represented yet another path. Jewelry, candles, printable planners, digital art, personalized gifts. The market for unique human-made items continues growing, even as mass production dominates retail. Precisely because people crave connection to the creator behind what they buy. The startup costs varied depending on the product, but many successful Etsy shop owners began with less than $100 in supplies. They started small, tested what resonated, refined their offerings based on real customer feedback rather than assumptions about what should work. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Would you choose the safe path, or would you honor that quiet voice that keeps suggesting there might be more? Bookkeeping and financial services for small businesses emerged as another surprisingly accessible option. Not the complex corporate accounting that requires certifications, but the basic financial organization that small business owners desperately need and often neglect. Recording transactions, reconciling accounts, preparing reports, ensuring tax compliance. With affordable software and online courses, women without traditional finance backgrounds are building profitable bookkeeping practices from home. They're serving clients remotely, setting their own hours, and providing essential services that keep small businesses running smoothly. She felt something shift inside her, not dramatic or sudden, but real. The shift from "I couldn't possibly" to "what if I could." It's a small change in language, but a massive change in trajectory. Online course creation represented another avenue, though one that typically required more upfront work. The premise was compelling. Package knowledge or skills into structured lessons that could be sold repeatedly without additional time investment. Parenting strategies, organization, systems, cooking fundamentals, language basics, crafting techniques. The topics were endless. The key wasn't having expert-level knowledge. It was having solved a problem that others were currently facing and being able to explain the solution clearly. She thought about the systems she'd developed over years of motherhood, the shortcuts she'd discovered, the mistakes she'd learned from these had value beyond her own experience. Digital product creation offered similar leverage, templates, checklists, workbooks, spreadsheets, printables, once created. These products could be sold infinitely without additional production costs. Women were building entire businesses around organizational tools, budgeting spreadsheets, meal planning guides, and productivity systems they'd originally designed for their own use. The beauty of digital products is their scalability. Create once, sell forever. No inventory limits, no shipping logistics, no production bottlenecks. Just value packaged into formats that others could immediately implement. But here's what she learned that nobody talks about enough. None of these paths guarantee success. None of them promise easy money or overnight transformation. Every single one requires work, patience, learning, and the willingness to fail forward repeatedly. The difference between those who build sustainable income and those who don't isn't talent or luck. It's consistency. It's showing up even when results are slow. It's treating the work like work, even when it doesn't yet pay like work. It's believing in the process long enough for the process to prove itself. She thought about timing, about whether this was realistic given everything else on her plate. But then she realized something crucial. There would never be perfect timing. Her kids would always need her. The house would always need managing. Life would always be full. The question wasn't whether she had time. It was whether she was willing to make it. Research shows that most successful home-based businesses start with less than 5 hours per week of dedicated work. Not because that's ideal, but because that's what's actually available. The key is protecting those hours fiercely and using them with intention. Early mornings, late nights, nap times, the fragments of time that would otherwise disappear into scrolling or worry. She made a decision. Not about which path to take or how quickly to scale. Just the decision to begin. To pick one direction and commit to learning everything she could about it. To give herself permission to be a beginner, to expect mistakes and confusion in moments of questioning everything. What helped her most wasn't just discovering these possibilities. It was finding tools that removed friction from the process. Simple platforms that didn't require technical expertise, communities of other women building similar businesses, resources that demystified the parts that felt overwhelming. What helped me most wasn't just finding the right business model. It was realizing I didn't need permission to start small. I tested different approaches. I learned what worked through doing, not through planning perfectly. And honestly, having access to the right tools changed everything. I'm not telling you what to buy or promoting specific products. I'm just sharing what made my own path lighter. Things like Canva Pro for creating professional designs without design skills. Simple accounting software that made financial tracking less terrifying. A decent microphone for clearer communication. Small investments that removed major barriers. This isn't advice, it's just my experience, and I'll leave some resources below if you want to explore them. But the real tool is the decision itself, the choice to honor that quiet voice saying there might be another way. She learned to recognize the difference between productive action and busy work, between strategic progress and scattered effort, between building something sustainable and chasing every shiny opportunity that promised quick results. The transformation wasn't dramatic. There was no moment when everything clicked and success arrived fully formed. Instead, there were small victories. A first client, a positive review, a week where she earned more than she spent, a moment when she realized she'd stopped apologizing for working on her business during her free time. Her workspace was still her kitchen counter. The noise of family life still interrupted her focus regularly. She still had days when progress felt impossible and doubt felt definitive. But something fundamental had changed. The chaos no longer felt suffocating. It felt like the backdrop to something she was building. Something that was slowly but undeniably becoming real. The guilt didn't disappear entirely, but it lost its power. She realized her children were learning something valuable by watching her build. They were learning that mothers are whole people, that ambition and care aren't opposites, that work can be meaningful even when it's hard. Sometimes the best business decision you can make is giving yourself permission to exist as more than your role requires, to claim space for your own growth. To believe that your ideas, your skills, your particular way of seeing problems, that all of it has value beyond what you do for others. She smiled, not because everything was easy or figured out, not because success was guaranteed or the path was clear, but because it was finally hers. This uncertain, messy, beautiful process of becoming someone who builds things, someone who tries, someone who refuses to believe that her most creative years are behind her. When she poured her coffee the next morning, it was still hot. Because this time, she wasn't rushing, she was building. One small decision at a time. One project, one client. One moment of choosing herself alongside everything else she chose to nurture. The living room hadn't changed. Same furniture, same scattered toys, Same routine chaos of family life. But she saw it differently now. Not as the place where dreams go to die, but as the place where they might quietly come back to life. Tell us what part of this story resonated with you most, and where you're watching from. Your journey might just inspire the next one. Tell us which country or city you're watching from. See you in the next video.